And for a couple different reasons, FarmFirst Dairy's board of directors meeting, but then also a Farmers for Free trade gathering up by Bangor. Are you seeing more of this kind of conversation unfold now, especially since people are on their Easter break, those senators, those representatives, Jim?
Well, this trade policy debate, Pam, is so important to agriculture and especially dairy. Right now, we're working with Farmers for Free Trade, a group of a lot of agricultural commodity groups, trying to advance a trade agenda that will protect and promote U.S. agriculture abroad. We need more and better trade agreements. It starts with the NAFTA USMCA agreement. We need an agreement with Japan. Those negotiations have begun. But trade policy is so important, and there's a lot going on. Unfortunately, much of it has been harmful for agriculture. We need to get the tariffs that are currently limiting our exports because of the retaliation that a number of countries have put in place. We need to get those tariffs lifted. And then we need new trade agreements to get better access to some of these foreign markets.
What do you think the odds are right now of ratifying the U.S.-Mexico-Canada agreement, Jim?
Well, I think ultimately it's going to get done. There are some roadblocks in the way right now. I think the first roadblock that has to get cleared out are these tariffs. So we have the Section 232 tariffs that are in effect on both Canada and Mexico as a result of the U.S. The U.S. has those tariffs on, and they've retaliated with tariffs on our products. So we've seen our dairy product exports to Mexico cut back fairly substantially, and that's been a real problem at a time when they are looking to other markets to displace us. U.S. dairy, it's a $1.4 billion a year business with Mexico. We provide them 75% of their total imports in dairy come from the U.S. They just finished a trade deal with the European Union. We could be losing market share if we don't get these tariffs lifted and get that going. Get that done first, get rid of the tariffs, and then there'll be a few other issues to deal with, but at the end of the day, I think the USMCA agreement gets passed. It's better, it's an improvement over NAFTA, and it's going to help not only U.S. dairy, U.S. agriculture, and really the entire U.S. economy.
You know, in just the past 2 years, farmers have learned so much about trade agreements, tariffs, and how quickly things can hurt. Is this changing the direction of dairy policy overall at all, Jim? A lot of dairy farmers ask about supply management. Boy, they're pounding out that drum, and you generally say there's not enough consensus on that yet.
Well, I would say, I'd break that into two pieces, Pam. First, let me take your trade question. I've been in the dairy industry long enough to remember the days when we had the protectionist walls up. We said we didn't want any imports coming in. We didn't see an opportunity for exports because we saw the Europeans were using export subsidies to dump product on the world market. So we had a distorted world market. Well, you fast forward to today, and we now produce 30 billion pounds, 30 billion with a B, pounds more milk than we consume in the U.S. market. So the U.S. market's huge for us, but it's only 85% of our production. We need a market for that additional milk. If we don't, if it backs up into the U.S. market, prices have been bad the last 4 years. They'd be so much worse if we didn't have access to these export markets. So we have to grow export trade in dairy. It's a key part of our future. And trade agreements are necessary to do that because we have lots of barriers to get our product into overseas markets. If we don't have barriers, we can make those sales. There's a hunger in the world for quality milk products. We have them, we want to sell them to the world. So that's the first part. The second part is the issue of supply management. And it's an issue that, again, that given my long history in dairy, I've been through this many, many times. The only two supply management programs we've had of any major significance were ones that I worked on early in my career. The diversion program, the whole herd buyout. Those are really the only two short-term supply management programs. We tried again in 1990 to do a supply management program in the Farm Bill there. A program, the policy we were advancing at that point is not dissimilar from what people are talking about today, this notion of two-tier pricing. Higher price on part of your milk, a much lower price on overproduction or over the market needs. In 1990 we pushed that, it crashed and burned. The industry was split, didn't come together, and every farm bill since, U.S. farm policy has moved away from supply management. There's no major commodity in America that has any form of supply management as their farm policy. We tried it in 2014. Supply management was part of our Farm Bill proposal that we advocated to the Congress. Everybody knows what happened there. We didn't get it passed. And unfortunately, some of the same people who are advocating supply management today were sitting on their hands in 2014 when we were trying to push that. That's unfortunate. We saw the potential that these bad times could be coming. That's why we pushed that policy, but we couldn't get national unity in the dairy producer community. Plus we had overwhelming dairy processing community opposition. So aside from one's views of whether supply management is good or bad,
Right.
the political reality is that it's not going to happen. And I'm spending my time, therefore, trying to put in place policies that can be done, can provide help.
Right.
That's the safety net changes we've had in the new Farm Bill. Hasn't kicked in yet. When that kicks in, it's going to be help. It's not going to make anybody wealthy, but it's going to be a more effective safety net than we've had. And then we have to grow these export markets and grow the domestic market. That really is how we're going to get dairy back into the footing that we need to be in.
You know, as if that's not enough on your plate, Jim, talk to me a little bit about geographic markers, the continued battle with partners outside the United States that don't want us calling it Gouda, don't want us calling it cheddar, et cetera. Any new updates there?
Well, there's a lot of activity on that issue of geographical indications, and it's a really important issue here in Wisconsin because the focus of the GI issue is the Europeans see that we're making high quality dairy products, especially high quality cheeses. We're winning world awards for the cheeses that are coming from the U.S., many of them from Wisconsin. They see that and they know the U.S. is going to be a formidable competitor in the future. So they're pushing the GI issue to wall off the competition and say we can't call a product Gorgonzola,
right,
or we can't call it Parmesan, we can't call it feta if it didn't come from Europe, essentially what the policy is. So we are pushing back on that very strongly, but the Europeans are being very, very aggressive. And all the time that we spend not getting new trade agreements, Europeans are getting the deal closed, and they just finished one with Japan, and they have GIs as part of that. So we're going to have a barrier into Japan as we try to get export sales into there. Into Mexico, the EU just finished a trade agreement with Mexico. That has the GIs as part of it as well. So this is a very tough issue. We need to be doing more trade agreements, get more engaged in that as a country, and the policies we're putting in place, the new USMCA, for example, does have language in there to protect GIs, and there's a process that we can go through that will help us push back on the Europeans as they try to advance this policy.
That was what I was going to ask, is if we decide we want to do battle in Japan or other areas where these GIs are an issue, is it a World Trade Organization situation, or where do we try to find resolution?
Right now, it's not a WTO issue because WTO does not have GI provisions in it.
Okay.
Excuse me, these are kind of bilateral agreements right now where the Europeans are advancing their agenda through doing a one-on-one agreement directly with Mexico. They did it with Canada. They're doing it with South American countries. They just finished one with Japan. So their policy, their approach is to do it as a one-off. What we're trying to do is make sure that, number one, keep companies from giving those names to the Europeans, number one. Failing that, to make sure that there is a process, a due process, so that if somebody tries to register a GI, if we've already been in that market with product, we can get grandfathered in and protect our export sales.
All right. We were talking about 85% of what we produce has got to go someplace else, but there is a hunger for dairy. Are you noticing any innovations coming to the market, Jim? I've had a lot of dairy farmers say, why are we still doing the same old with fluid milk packaging? Is there product development out there that gives you encouragement on what consumers might buy here in the United States if it's got a different look, a different flavor?
There's a lot of innovation going on, both in product development, in packaging, in some of the ultra-filtered milks. They're trying to increase the protein content, to reduce the lactose, the milk sugar, bring that down, because some people who are lactose intolerant, you can take out the lactose using a filtering process. But packaging, you look into the yogurt category, which has been flat for a while, took the rocket ride with up with sales on Greek yogurt, that's plateaued. But you're seeing some new yogurts come into the market there, the Icelandic yogurt, Australian, and different European type yogurts. So there's some opportunity there. We do need more and better innovation in the dairy category. It's not going to be just the white gallon jug that's going to deliver salvation for us. We're going to have to develop more products and sell them in new ways. So there's lots of opportunity, lots of companies looking at it, and frankly, as an industry, we need to speed that up.
Jim Mulhern, President, CEO of National Milk Producers Federation. You picked a good time to come home, don't you think?
It's a great time, and it's great to be back here. When I got the request from FarmFirst to come out and speak to the board meeting, and then had the event with Farmers for Free Trade yesterday up in Bangor, I thought, this is a good time right after Easter, get back home. I get to see my family, get up to Portage this weekend, and visit with family there, and then family I have here in the Madison area, so it's great to be home.
No humidity, no bugs, too.
No humidity, no bugs, and some sunshine for a change, which is not always what happens to me. I've come back here an early May for fishing season and had wake up in the morning with 4 inches of snow on the ground. So I'm glad that that's not going to happen this trip.
Well, welcome back, Jim Mulhern, again, President and CEO, National Milk Producers Federation, with a full plate of issues that he's dealing with in Washington, D.C., from the tariffs and trade discussions right on through to trying to find new innovations for the milk that you are producing. From the southern end of the world's longest barn in Madison, I'm Farm Director Pam Jahnke.